Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Greetings to all the examiners and my bachelor thesis supervisor, Bapak Muhammad Akbar Fadzkurrahman Annahl, SE M.Sc. Today I would like to present my bachelor thesis with the title of The Influence of Sugar-Sweetened Beverage Taxation Policy on FEB UGM Students Batch 2020 until 2023 Sugar-Sweetened Beverage Consumption Perception. My name is Bima Mahardika Widyadana. Okay. Next, the content of today's presentation will be first introduction, second framework, third research methodology, fourth result and discussion, and the last is the conclusion. First, introduction. First thing first to discuss in the introduction is the background. The background of this research is the rising burden of non-communicable disease, or NCDs, with NCDs responsible for 3 out of every 4 deaths in the country by 2018, data from World Health Organization. Rising healthcare costs from disease caused by overconsumption of sugar is also the background of this research, which, besides the rising cost, SSB tax also poses a huge benefit from the side of national income, where the income potential from SSB tax is around 2.7 until 6.25 trillion rupiah per year, data from BPK in 2023. Next one is the trend of university students consuming a lot of popular drinks like coffee and energy drinks is in line with the increasing number of overweight in this particular age of group. The next thing is the problem statement. In the problem statement, the first one is increasing health problems caused by excessive sugar consumption in the past decade. Next is the law only regulates excise on tobacco and alcoholic beverage, which no specific law addressing the sugar-sweetened beverage yet. The next one is Indonesia faces a dangerous threat from overweight and obesity that it deems necessary for Indonesia to start implementing a sugar-sweetened beverage tax, as it has proven successful in many other countries. Next one is research question. From the background and problem statement, we could derive 2 research questions. The first one is, how does the implementation of the tax on sugar-sweetened beverage may affect the potential consumption of sugar-sweetened beverages? And the second question is, how does the level of student allowance have an impact on sugar-sweetened beverage consumption of FEB UGM students? Next one is the research objectives. The first one is to examine the impact of SSB tax on the SSB consumption perception of FEB UGM students, and also to determine the impact of the level of student allowance on the sugar-sweetened beverage consumption of FEB UGM students. Next one is the research contribution. The first one, we have 3 contributions. First one is practical, theoretical, and policy. In practical side, it hoped that this research may give understanding of the importance of charging tax on sugar-sweetened beverages, which has a good purpose of reducing and controlling the amount of sugar intake. For theoretical contribution is this research may be used as a reference for future research regarding the impact of sugar-sweetened beverage tax on student consumption behavior. Next one, in terms of policy, this research is hoped that it may help policymakers in formulating sugar-sweetened beverage tax policies and health consequences from the perspective of the Ministry of Health by considering the impact on Indonesian society. Next is research framework and hypothesis. In this research, I have 2 hypotheses. The first one is tax on sugar-sweetened beverage have a negative impact on the consumption of sugar-sweetened beverages. And the second hypothesis is the level of income or student allowance has a positive impact on the consumption of sugar-sweetened beverage. And here is the research framework model. Next one is the research methodology. In the first of research methodology, we have operational variables. In this research, we have 2 independent variables with 1 dependent variables. The first independent variables is the sugar-sweetened beverage tax itself as X1, and level of student allowances as X2, and dependent variables sugar-sweetened beverage consumption perception as Y. For the data collection techniques, we use primary data collected by distributing Google Form questionnaire to FEB UGM students batch 2020 until 2023. For population and sample, FEB UGM student The population is FEB UGM students batch 2020 until 2023 as the population. And the sampling techniques in this research is non-probability sampling of purposive sampling, which the number of sample calculated using Solvin's formula that we have 95, but I round it to 100. Next, for the data analysis techniques, we have 3 tests of instrument quality test, classical assumption test, and hypothesis test. In instrument quality test, we have validity test and reliability test. In classical assumption test, we have normality test, heteroscedasticity test, and multicollinearity test. For hypothesis test, we have coefficient of determination test, F test, and T test. Moving on to the result and discussion. First, we have the descriptive statistic, the variables of sugar-sweetened beverage consumption with the numbers of respondent is 100 with a minimum of 1.25, maximum of 5. The mean is 3.6 and standard deviation of 0.96. Next variable is sugar-sweetened beverage tax with the N of 100, minimum is 1.17, the maximum is 5, and the mean also 3.69 and standard deviation of 0.95. The next one is level of student allowances with the N of 100, minimum of 1.25, maximum is 5, mean is 3.47, and standard deviation of 0.96. And here is the first instrument quality test, which is the validity test. We can see that all the instrument, all the question asked in the questionnaire is valid with the value of Pearson correlation is above the alpha and the significance is below the alpha of 0.05. Next is the reliability test. We can see that from here, all the variables tests in this research is reliable with all the Cronbach alpha value is above 0.6 as mentioned by Ghazali. The next one is the classical assumption test. In this, we have normality test of one sample Kolmogorov-Smirnov. We can see that the significance is above 0.05 or alpha, which in this research the value is 0.145, which is determined as normal distribution. Next one is we have heteroscedasticity test with a significance of 0.687, which is determined that this is non-heteroscedasticity. The next one is multicollinearity test. This test may be determined valid if the value is between 1 and 10, and this research value of multicollinearity test is 4.1 for both independent variables. Next one is the hypothesis testing. The first one is we have coefficient determination with the R-square of 0.95. This means that the the correlation between the sugar-sweetened beverage tax and sugar and student allowance to the sugar-sweetened beverage consumption perception is 95.6%. The closer to 1, the value of R square is better for coefficient determination. Next one is we have F test, where we assess the correlation between two independent variables that will affect the dependent variables. We can see that the F test, the significance is less than 0.01, which is valid because the significance is under the alpha value of 0.05. Next one is T test, which we assess separate independent variables to assess the correlation between the independent variable and dependent variable of x1 and x2. We can see that the coefficient for x1 is 0.878 and x2 is 0.12 with the significance of the x1 below 0.001 and x2 is 0.005, which determine this is significant for both the independent variable. Discussion and result for this, the hypothesis 1, tax on sugar-sweetened beverages have a negative impact on the consumption of sugar-sweetened beverages is rejected because the coefficient for the independent variable is a positive, which shows that which shows a positive correlation between sugar-sweetened beverage tax and the consumption perception of sugar-sweetened beverage. The next one, for the H2, is the level of income or student allowance has a positive impact on the consumption of sugar-sweetened beverages. The conclusion is supported, as the higher the level of student allowance may increase the consumption of sugar-sweetened beverage because they have more income to spend and they have a higher spending for sugar-sweetened beverage. Next one is conclusion. The first conclusion is sugar tax shows a positive relationship between sugar tax and sugar consumption perception. And the next one is level of student allowances have a positive significant to the FEBUGM students' sugar-sweetened beverage consumption perception. Next one is the limitation. The first limitation in this research is that the scope of research only limited to the students of FEBUGM students, batch 2020 until 2023, which is the alma mater of the author. And the second one is the second limitation is this research only focusing on two variables, which is sugar-sweetened beverage tax and the level of student allowance that may influence the consumption perception. The third limitation is that this research conducted before the tax policy is actively implemented directly in the market. Thus, this research only assess the future consumption perception of sugar-sweetened beverage if the tax later be implemented. Last but not least is the suggestions. The first suggestion is for future research to broaden the scope of the research that may cover bigger populations in different demographic traits. This may cover population broader than FEBUGM students in order for the bigger population to understand the importance of taxing sugar-sweetened beverage and its benefits toward the health of people in Indonesia. Next one is the second suggestion is for future research to explore other variables and methodologies, which is hope to get bigger picture and more comprehensive result for the impact of the sugar-sweetened tax and sugar-sweetened beverage consumption. The third suggestion is for future research is to be conducted when the tax policy of sugar-sweetened beverage is actively implemented in the market. This may result in a more accurate consumption pattern and behavior of sugar-sweetened beverage after the implementation of tax. With more accurate result, policymakers may design a better policy to implement it in Indonesia, which before the proposed tax rate of 1,500 rupiah per liter for tea and 2,500 liter for carbonated drinks should be evaluated more in the future, and Indonesia may adopt sugar-sweetened beverage tax policy in Thailand, which charging a rate of 14% for sugar-sweetened beverage. This may be more effective in Indonesia. Okay, that's all from my presentation. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.